Hello and welcome back to Hobby Envoy. I'm Cole, and the subject for today's video is going to be the Gundam Heavyarms, one of the iconic mobile suits from new mobile report Gundam Wing, which just celebrated this year its 30th anniversary. Now this video is going to be a little different than our other painting videos, and we're going to skip over the building and the painting process for the most part in order to talk about the model itself, but also a new tool that I picked up and started using with this model. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you've watched some of my previous videos, you'll know that I've been trying out different weathering techniques and tools on my models. For this model, I wanted to try out the weathering pencils from AK Interactive. What they are is essentially colored oil pencils that are intended to use for weathering, scrapes, and chipping effects. The intent is that you matte varnish a model and then you're able to use them in various ways to create minor damage and scuffs, and even in certain cases washes with the pencils. Of the weathering techniques I've tried, the weathering pencils from AK Interactive required the least amount of prep. Once the model is clear coated in a matte varnish, you're able to just get off to the races. The only trouble that I had is that the pencils seem to skate off the surface of the model, and in some cases didn't leave very strong marks. I suspect that's because even though I did clear coat the model in matte varnish, per the tutorials online, the particular matte varnish I'm using doesn't provide enough tooth to fully take advantage of the pencils. So for the next model I do this with, I'll try a different varnish, perhaps going back to Tester's dull coat like I've used in the past. I was quite impressed with the look I was able to achieve with the weathering pencils with a minimal amount of effort. You'll note that the application is a little haphazard and sloppy, and this is in part due to the aforementioned skating off the surface, but also because I was trying various techniques to see what would happen. There's also a whole realm of weathering that I did not get into that's possible with the weathering pencils, as you're able to create various streaking and pooling effects with the application of water. With just using the pencils by themselves, I was only doing scuffing and high edge wear effects. About the model of the Gundam Heavyarms itself, I was very impressed with its level of articulation, especially for a high-grade model. The Heavyarms has all the gimmicks that you would expect it to have, with its weapon bays being able to open up, revealing its missile launchers and machine guns in the chest. But it also has something that seems relatively minor, but impressed me quite a bit, as its feet articulate. Now, like I said, this seems very minor, but just having that little extra point of articulation allows for a lot more dynamic posing to be able to be executed without the use of an action base. And it's not even that the Heavyarms is brand new. This particular model came back in 2020, and the Gundam EX from late last year in 2024 doesn't have articulation in the feet. Though it is quite a nice, detailed, high-grade model, the Heavyarms has a beat on that count. And that's not to say that the high-grade Heavyarms is lacking for detail either. It looks just as you would expect it would if you've watched the animation. Though there are some downsides to it, were you to just build it and not paint it. For instance, as is typical to high grades, there's a lot of small details that are colored correctly through the use of stickers, and there's even some parts, like what I think are intakes on the inner legs, that you would just leave those just plain white squares were you not to paint it. However, painted, it looks beautiful, and it was a fairly simple process with only a few areas I had to get creative on with the painting. And that's it for the Gundam Heavyarms. I hope you enjoyed it. In the meantime, I'm going to be working on a slightly bigger project. I might have a smaller video that I complete while I'm working on that larger project, but failing in that, it might be a while before my next video gets uploaded. But I will catch you then. Later. Once the model is clear coated in a matte varnish, you're able to just... That was my dryer.